and the record sales are diluted in comparison to what it used to be. I mean, there's artists, whether it's the Eagles or Billy Joel, at 24 million, 27 million, Michael Jackson, the Thriller. Those numbers really don't exist. And if they do, they're really aberrations. The Adele success, the Taylor Swift success, those are aberrations. That really wasn't the case 25 years ago. I have a lot of gold records and platinum records on my wall, and some of those artists, you don't even know who they are. And today, you know, if you did 25,000 in the week, you could end up being in the top 10.
So we've heard that she has several albums right now in the top 10, as it were, right now. Does that mean it's not quite as important, for example, to her and her team as all those sold-out concert venues?
Well, it doesn't bring in the revenue that it used to bring in to the label, et cetera, because it's not millions of records that are being sold weekly. It's an amazing, again, another amazing accomplishment, but it is not, it does not have the same revenue stream that it did 30 years ago.
What does this mean for the venues? Are they making a lot of money off of this as a practical matter?
Sure, the venues are doing wonderful. They make from the food and beverage, the parking, the ticketing. Oh yeah, it's a big business for the venues. Many venues now, especially the stadiums, are very aggressive in trying to lure talent.
This is a big business. Taylor Swift in herself is a big business. Who runs that business?
Well, you know, I don't represent Taylor, but she has, you know, her team. And I think my perception is that Taylor, I think for an artist to really be very successful, I think they have to be smart, and they have to have good instinct, and they need to have business savvy. And I think Taylor probably fits those qualifications.
Is that your experience with the artists you represent? In fact, that the good ones, the successful ones, particularly over a period of time, are pretty savvy about how they manage their business and their brand?
Well, a lot of artists have managers, but no matter what, there's always somebody, usually in a band, who's running the band, who the manager has to bring their suggestions to. But the artists ultimately make their own decisions. So as much as, you know, people can be very influential, but you need to have good instinct and good savvy. And I think, you know, I think that's an ingredient. I've seen people lose careers because their heads weren't in the right place to handle it.
One of the things we hear a lot about is selling the catalog, particularly for artists who are farther along in their career than Taylor Swift. Take us through the economics of that, whether that makes sense, because I've heard some people say that's not a good idea because you're selling your birthright. And on the other hand, there's a lot of money sitting out there, or has been recently, private equity and others buying catalogs.
I think it's a personal decision. You get into your 70s, some people want to take the money now. Some people want to avoid a conflict with their family in the future of how their music will, you know, how they're going to handle the money, how the catalog will be handled. So, and some people see it as an opportunity, and greed always wins, you know. So, you know, it's hard to tell somebody, hey, I'm 72 years old, I can get, you know, 250 million for my catalog. You can't take it with you.
That seems to be right. So Wall Street Week really addresses investors. And most investors are not going to be Taylor Swifts or even Taylor Swift wannabes. But if somebody wants to invest today in the music business, is there a part that it makes sense to invest in? There was a time, for example, you'd probably invest in RCA, you'd invest in Decca, something like that. Where do you invest today if you want to invest in music? Well, I mean, the live space, you know, and the space I live in is the #1 space. To me, that's the golden goose. I mean, there are artists that can make as much as 10 million a night, you know, performing, which is you know, a stupendous number. And so I think, you know, how much room is available? It's a billionaire's game. There's no doubt. It used to be a millionaire's game, and today it's a billionaire's game. You have to have deep pockets, because you could also have deep losses, but you can have huge wins. When you say it's the live space, does that mean the promoters, the people who put it together? Because there are companies out there, even some we know, the live space are the promoters, the venues. Yes, it's a very attractive business. It's not for everyone.
Again, you have to have deep pockets, because as many as the Taylor Swifts and the Billy Joels and the Metallicas and the Bad Bunnies that you have, there are a lot that never get to that level either. And sometimes you're responsible for growing some of these artists, and sometimes, you know, money wins when it's time, when they get to the upper echelon, that people buy them.
Yeah, fascinating. Is it a good business?
Oh, I've had a good time.
Well,
I mean, it's a fun business, you know. With you know, it's like being an athlete in a way. You're an athlete. Is it fun playing baseball? It has its pressures, it has its moments, but to play baseball for a living, so to be a participant in music, which was kind of a fun activity. And I look at it like I go to a lot of parties, big concert, but they're big parties.
Okay, Dennis, thank you so much for being on Wall Street Week. That is Dennis Arfa. He's the founder of AGI. Coming up, has the strong dollar run its course? We'll go through where we...
Oh, hi. Are you wondering what I'm doing? I'll show you. This is quite neat, isn't it? And I made it myself. And you can do it too with coding. What's coding? Well, have you ever wondered how computers do the things they do? Like play movies or show pictures or make music? How does it know what to do? That's what I wanted to know too. Computers know what to do because of coding. Think of it like a recipe book for when you want to make your favorite food. When the computer is turned on, it needs instructions. And when you ask it to do something, like use Netflix or YouTube or anything, it's like giving it a recipe for how to do it. But instead of ingredients and cooking, it uses something called a programming language. To us, a page of code looks like a page with numbers. But to a computer, it's in a language it can understand. And there are different computer languages in the same way that there are different human languages. We have English and French and German, and they have things called C++ or Python or Java. So if you can understand English, you can follow a cooking recipe written in English. But if you don't understand French, then you won't know what to do with the French recipe. Anyone can learn to program, and some languages are easier than others. If you work hard at it, you can get a computer to do whatever you want. That's how they make video games. That's how they make computer programs like drawing software. And it's even how they make websites like YouTube and TikTok. Nowadays, almost everything uses a computer in one way.
This is Wall Street Week. I'm David Weston. The U.S. dollar had been on something of a tear recently, hitting its peak last September, driven by all those rate hikes and expectations of more to come. But since then, it's given up over 5%, with prospects that the Fed may be nearing the end of turning up the heat. And J.P. Morgan warned this week it may get worse from here. But it's still nothing compared to what Louis Rukeyser was looking at on Wall Street Week back in 1993.
The American dollar repeatedly dived to new post-war lows against the Japanese yen, fast approaching the once unthinkable level of 100 yen to the dollar. And one Japanese financier confided to me that the next logical step would be to revalue, knocking off the last two zeros, so that 1 yen would equal and perhaps even exceed $1. Never mind that many economists seriously question the wisdom of a succession of our own governments whooping the yen higher and the dollar lower, while beating on the Japanese to open their markets wider.
To take us through where we are today with the dollar and where we may be going, we welcome back Bloomberg International Economics and Policy Correspondent Michael McKee.
Unfortunately for Mr. Rukeyser, the dollar continued its dive, in 1995 reaching the once unthinkable level of 80 yen. That was back in the days when American consumers seemed to be buying everything Japan could manufacture. The slide wasn't arrested until Robert Rubin, who became Treasury Secretary just as the dollar reached its nadir, was able to hammer home a new mantra that a strong dollar was in the best interests of the United States. And since then, as you've often heard, markets go up and markets go down. By 1998, the yen had weakened so much, the U.S. was willing to join with other G7 nations to strengthen it. Why? Well, for one thing, the euphemisms strong and weak are quite misleading. There are advantages and disadvantages to both conditions. If the dollar appreciates, it means foreign goods are cheaper to buy. That helps hold down inflation, which means interest rates can stay lower than otherwise necessary. But it also means American exports cost more overseas. If the dollar is depreciating, those exports are cheaper, and U.S. companies can sell more. More foreign tourists can afford to visit, and American assets become more attractive to foreign buyers. Now, some politicians worry about what they call a weak dollar, and it has been depreciating. The dollar rose because the U.S. economy has been much stronger than others, and the Fed's raised U.S. interest rates higher than other central banks. With the Fed almost done, that's changing against many currencies. Currency strategists forecast some dollar weakening, but no crash. It's still historically strong. A drop may disrupt some carry trades and other strategies, but it's not necessarily a bad thing for the U.S. Just sounds bad. David?
Thanks to Bloomberg's Michael McKee. Coming up, we're told that generative AI will change all of our lives in ways we just can't imagine. We put together a special Wall Street Week roundtable of Larry Summers and Steve Ratner to give us an early read on the possible effects of this revolution on macroeconomics and on investors.
There's a substantial chance that AI is going to be much more of a threat to IQ than it is to EQ.
It is the cognitive classes, as you call them, who are most at risk.
This is Wall Street Week on Bloomberg.